I'm gonna just get straight to the point. Here's the beat we're gonna break down in today's video. It's got 3 sections. Drake and Partynextdoor have been working together for probably over a decade at this point, and they've crafted this unique R&B trap soul sound together. So today we're going to go through that and show you some secrets like getting that authentic sampled sound with the vocals, getting the classic underwater Drake effect, and a few other tips along the way, so you definitely don't want to miss it. So it all starts in a different FLP where I made the loop. The thing with these melodies is they sound sampled, but they're not sampled. They're made from scratch. At least that's what I did today. And there's a few things that I like to do to get that authentic sound. So first off, I make the beat in a much faster tempo than what we're going to end in. So what we're going to do after we export it is slow it down a bunch, pitch it down, and then add a few effects to it to really get that Drake sound. But without any effects, at original tempo, this is what we got. It sounds nothing like a Partynextdoor Drake song, to be honest, right? But when it's slowed down, it sounds perfect. So I'm gonna show you how I made this, and it all starts with the chords. I'm not going to go into like the super basics, like the scale highlighting, skip every other note in the scale to make a chord. Most of you have seen that in every other tutorial. What I want to go over here is the stuff that actually matters. So for sound selection, I love the Analog Lab. I use that shit in every single beat, but anything with good pads in it is going to work well. And I simply just lay down the bass notes first. So I went F sharp, A, B, and then I just built chords off of all of those. A tip to make it sound a little bit more R&B is to use voicings. This is what it sounded like originally. But I don't like how big the jumps are, so I like to move everything closer together. So I took this note and then these 2 notes, and I just pitched them down an octave. So it's the same chord, just being played differently. And when everything's a little bit closer together, you get more like notes that have dissonance in them, like right here, this A and this G sharp. And then right here, this B and this A are also pretty close together. So that creates like more like kind of uneasy feeling, which sounds good in R&B. So we got our main progression down. Very, very simple. The thing with these Drake songs, like they all use the same chords over and over again. So as long as you know the basic progressions, you're good. A tip for this, you can literally go on ChatGPT, generate me 10 chord progressions similar to Drake and Partynextdoor. It'll shoot out a bunch of them and then you're good. Next thing with these beats is there's not that many melodies. I often see producers add a shit ton of melodies, and it's like, it's nice that you know how to make all that, but you don't need to do that for these beats. The simpler the better. So it's all about the layers, which make it sound a lot bigger and fuller. So we layered those same chords and a few more sounds. For example, this sound is like a lot of movement. Like it starts very small and then like gets bigger as it goes. Those are the type of sounds you want to go for. So you could even experiment with some ARPs, but those might be a bit too much. But like evolving pads do very well. Just stuff like that, because it's just the chords. You know, there's not going to be counter melodies, so you want the chords to be having a lot of variation in them, like this. Then I added another layer. I had to export it just because like the sound didn't go that low. Synth bass is essential for these, so I just layered the bass notes from the chords on this synth bass. I got this random arcade patch just so there's some type of background melody, just so there's a little something. I threw halftime on it. And the final thing you can do, which really adds a lot of texture and stuff, is add like these little synth runs or like bell runs. You can use any sound with them, but these runs, and I'll show you how to do them. And I actually discovered how to do this before I even ever made my first beat. Back when I was younger, we got like a random piano in my basement, and I would just fuck around on it. And something I did and I discovered was that like, if you play just the black notes, they all sound good together for some reason. And then if you just kind of like slide down all the black notes, it creates a nice sounding run. And then in recent times, I've seen other producers talk about this exact thing in their beats, and I was like, damn, I discovered that like 6 years ago and I never even did it in a beat. That's what we have here. This is what it sounds like just going up the black notes. Sounds pretty good. The problem is that's not in key with our beats. So I'll give you a little tip. The black notes, if you just go up all them, that's in the key of D sharp minor. So you want to put that in whatever key your beat's in. So I'm in F sharp minor, so we're just going to go up to that. So now with everything, that's going to sound really good. And I put the same thing but backwards at the end. So super simple so far. You could experiment with other sounds like leads and all that. There's a few Partynextdoor songs, Drake songs that have that. But for the most part, it really is just chords and like bass, sometimes like little bells and synths in the background. And then the main thing, which is what we're going to talk about now, which is the vocals. Everybody asks, how do you get those Drake vocals, those R&B vocals? And the best way to do it is to hire a singer or sing yourself. There's no way around it. It's vocals. You can't fake vocals. Your second best option, if you don't have that, is Splice. You can find like vocals on there. I've done that in the past. Your third option, old reliable, is Arcade. A lot of people like I think it's called Hooked or something like that. I'll put the one on screen. That's the one everyone likes. Honestly, I don't like that one for these types of beats. The one I like is called Distant Voices, and that's what I have pulled up here. And then you can just fuck around with those, make sure it's in the key of your beat, and then just make a little vocal pattern. So I made a 16 bar vocal. Distant Voices is really good for like background vocals. Like this isn't going to be like, you know, some of the Drake songs have very catchy, like almost like lead vocals in them. This is very like background, but I think that works well for like the Partynextdoor influence. So we didn't need a crazy like main vocal, so I just went with Distant Voices, laid down that. And that's going to be the final loop before we do any effects to actually Partynextdoorify it, if that's a fucking word. So now we're in a new FLP, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. They just kind of slow it down, slap some drums on it, call it a day, and then it sounds like shit. Trust me, I used to do the same thing. I'm gonna show you how to do it the right way, starting with the classic underwater effect. So the way he does it is not just like you don't just cut out the highs, you actually just get rid of the highs as a whole. So you turn down the sample rate, and I'll show you how to do that. You're gonna open up Edison, drag in your sample, and then in this corner it should say sample rate, and it's gonna be 48,000. So you're gonna right click this, and then right here sample rate, you're gonna go down to a very low number. I'd say no more than 5,000, no less than like 1,000. You know, that would be super low. For me, I went 3,300 for this one, and then you want to click this resample button. If you don't, it's just going to sound like shit. And now we have this. So it's already sounding way more like drown out underwater. And the reason this works so well is because it leaves all the high end for the artist vocals and the drums. So the drum just sound way more snappy. The artist vocals really shine on these beats. So that's why that works so well. And I see tons of producers not doing that. And it ruins the whole beat in my opinion. So that's the underwater effect. It's that simple. Everybody says there's some crazy plugin. It's literally just take out the highs fully. We could drag this over to the playlist. So the original tempo was 146, which is way too fast for these types of beats. So what you want to do is you're going to go here, go to stretch, and the tempo we're going to aim for is about 90 to 100. I actually went a little lower and went to 89 for this beat. So if you just play your sample now, it's going to sound weird. Because you're slowing it down so much, you also have to pitch it down to make it fit. So I just pitched it down 200 cents. But there's a trick. In a lot of these Partynextdoor beats, the melody is actually detuned. And this is something I learned by doing my Tyler the Creator type beats, very commonly done in that. If you don't know how semitones work, basically one full like note is 100 cents. So we pitch it down to 200 cents. You can see it in the top left, 200 cents. What you want to do is you want to pitch it up slightly. So we're going to pitch it up 30 cents. So it's a third of a note up pretty much. So it's like detuned, but on purpose. And that just gives it the Partynextdoor effect in my opinion. So that's another crucial thing to do for these types of beats. And that's it in terms of the processing. Optional, you can add like some saturation, something to really like distort it a little bit more just to get like a more analog feel, but I didn't do that for this beat. So now we're gonna move on to the drums. And there's 3 options for the drums for these types of beats. And in this beat, I did all 3. So you're getting a 3-in-1 here. And they all work at the same tempo. So 89 BPM, I'm gonna show you the first style, which is just the drown out drums. Not gonna lie, every fucking Drake beat, it's the same pattern over and over again. Some variation of this. It's literally always just a kick and a snare every single time, and like a tom or like some form of like a snare, like something to put in the background. And it's that same rhythm like pretty much every time, or some simple variation of it. There's not like a bunch of hats and perks and all that, because these beats again are super simple, just because you need to leave room for the artist so they could like sing or they could rap, or these beats just have a lot of range, so you want to keep it super simple. So these sounds are already pretty drowned out, but what you want to do is export the drums. So now we got this. You're going to do the exact same thing of turning down the sample rate, which I already did here, already down to 3000. And then what I like to do is I like to just pitch it down, and then I add a little bit of reverb on it. So now we got something like this. So a lot of these Drake Partynextdoor songs, they'll start with something similar to that in the intro, then they'll drop into more like trappy sounds later on. But some of these songs will literally just have that all the way through. So that's option 1. You can literally just do that, and I'll show you how that sounds with the melody. In my opinion, this is the most like late night, sad, call your ex back type drums, compared to the other 2 are a little bit more different. So if you want to go for the sad vibe, do that. But there's 2 more drum styles that I want to show you. Very similar to the first drums, except we're using like trap sounds now, and it's still just like a kick and snare every single time. There's like barely ever hats. Some of these Drake beats, you know, like Do Not Disturb, it has like hats and stuff, but a lot of the classic Drake songs are literally just a kick and snare every single time. So we just started with a very similar rhythm. I think it's the exact same rhythm. And it's just about simple sounds. I layered 2 kicks just so it hits a little bit harder, and I layered 2 rims as well. And then I just have like a small reverb on the rim, just because these beats are very like spaced out. That just adds like that spaced out effect. Now with these drums, you want to make sure that your rims and your snares, whatever you use, you could also use a snare. You don't make it too loud, you know. It's very easy to make it too loud since there's like no high end in these beats at all. But I like to use short, simple, snappy sounds, and then just make sure it sits well in the mix. So this is what we got so far. And now instead of just letting the synth bass do its thing, I'll always add like a very simple 808 or like a sub. This time I used more of a subby 808. I just followed the kick pattern, added like a couple extra notes in there. And it's literally that simple. You could repeat that for the entire beat. These are the most simple beats in the game, and that's why there's some of the high streaming beats in the game. So this is the second section of the beat. So that was the second section. That's more of like the rap, you know, talk your shit, but it's still a little mellow. It's still good for a late night drive. The final section, you already know what that section is for. We don't even have to say it there. That's that slow section. So I'm gonna show you guys what I did there. I actually made 2 drum patterns for this one section just because I wanted to experiment a little bit. Same sounds as the last section, but completely different rhythm. So to start out, we got the same rim sounds, but we actually layered a couple snares on top of it. The actual rhythm is half the speed. So it's the same tempo, but it's half the speed, if that makes sense. I layered the same 2 kicks, and I had a very spaced out pattern, but at certain points it gets a little bit bouncier, like right there. But then at the beginning, spaced out. So we got spaced out, bouncy, spaced out. I have this reverse open hat just to add a little something. And then this is where the bounce really comes in, is with the hi-hats. So there's a couple things I did here. I'll just play the pattern first and then I'll break it down for you. So first thing, it just starts with the basic two-step, but I added a bunch of rolls, especially where the kicks hit. That's a good place to add rolls. So you notice that like a kick hits right here, kick hits here, and I like to add rolls on that. Another place I add rolls, like if there's like a very big empty space, like at the end, there's really nothing going on, I added a roll there. Yeah, my best tip for hats is really just like go with the rest of the drums. That's why I did the hats last. Go with the rest of the drums. Don't overdo it, but at the same time, we were trying to make it really bouncy here, so there is a lot of interesting rolls and stuff. But I'd rather underdo it than overdo it. So if you are struggling, I'd rather do too little than too much. And then you also might notice under here, that's just inspiration from Members Only off For All the Dogs. I had to do that. I know that was like an older one, but what they did was they took a very low hat note and they kind of layered it with the kicks. Except what I did here, I had some of the hat notes play where the kicks don't hit, so it creates an interesting bounce. So just listen to these hi-hats compared to the kicks. Then of course, 808s, same thing as before, just layered with the kicks. Then altogether, this is the first part of this section. Final section. Exact same drums, I switched up the hi-hats. Another option you could do for the hi-hats is actually super fast. I think you would call this one step. If you're gonna do that, I like to use a very like small, like short, snappy sounding hi-hat like I did here. I did the same thing down here where I layered it with the kicks, same rhythm. But then up here, it's a completely different rhythm. Just one step with occasional rolls in there. This, you really don't want to overdo with the rolls. Like it wasn't, so I made sure this wasn't crazy like the other hats where it was a little bit slower. Still kind of using like where the kicks hit as inspiration for where to put rolls. But overall, it's just much simpler. But yeah, this is the final section of the beat. In terms of processing, most of these sounds are completely unmixed. Small reverbs on some of the sounds just to fill in some space. And yeah, as long as you have good quality sounds like the sounds I have here, these all come from the free Discord community kit. Join the Discord in the description below. Then you don't really need to do crazy processing. Like I said before, just make sure the high-end sounds aren't too loud just because there's so little high end in the beat that it could be very easy to accidentally make the sounds too loud. Other than that, I have transitions in between each section. I mean, realistically, if you were making a beat yourself, you probably wouldn't want to do all these different styles in one beat, but I did it for the tutorial's sake. So I just put like little risers and transitions in between each one. Then I have like a break in the beat here. I just added like a vinyl. Those are the secrets. To recap, start with a higher tempo and then slow it down after. Decrease the sample rate to get that underwater effect. Pitch it up slightly so it's detuned. Keep the drums simple but bouncy and snappy. And yeah, that's it. If you're struggling to make beats, you want to learn how to make beats or even sell beats, click the first link in the description below. I'm not asking you to buy anything, just asking you to watch the short video that's on that page. If you want to see more videos like this, click the subscribe button, comment down below, click here to watch another video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.